Well, that wasn't an especially encouraging previous clip. Still, it's time for us to go to the seat, and I'm pretty sure Ridley's waiting for us there. That should help get the taste of that baffling escort bit in the oddly difficult fight against a red pirate out of my mind. Still, considering my mood at the moment, I somehow doubt I'm going to enjoy the fight against Ridley. Even if it's supposed to be a highlight of the game, it's gonna feel more like just another bit of the checklist for me here. Yeah, really feels more like we're just getting things over with on this planet than us going through any especially epic moments. And I can most certainly say the battle for the Pirate Homeworld didn't get even half as much love and care as the battle for Norian. Seriously, why the hell did they even bother having the Federation say they were starting some big invasion if what we saw in the previous clip was the entire large-scale fight? The only other sign of battle was in the previous clip before I saved, when we saw them shooting some stuff as soon as we shut down the shield. I'm pretty sure that tentacle thing would have been invincible unless we turned on the X-ray visor just for the sake of being annoying. I'm sorry, but somehow this line of defense just feels more pathetic than the previous two seeds. Hello, Ridley. Sorry I'm not more enthusiastic as you make your big boss fight for this game. This whole game just hasn't been doing it for me, and fighting against you is more of an obligation. Just like destroying this seed that we're standing in, rather than something I'm actually invested in getting finished. Why did Samus decide to roll in front of his jaws like that? Was that supposed to be a taunt of some kind? It doesn't matter what word they put before his name, it's still Ridley, and we've got a lot of experience fighting against him. I'm assuming we have to shoot him in the mouth like last time we fought him back on Norian. Sure, it's not doing any damage, but it's giving us a yellow flash. Just like the yellow flashes that turned out to mean nothing for the red pirate at the end of the previous clip. Good God, is he really doing less damage for it was this far into the game, when we were fighting him back on Norian at the start, when we had so much less health? Okay, so we pull his chest open. Why am I getting Doom vibes here? And apparently the only way to hurt him is to use the Hyper Beam when we ripped his chest open. I have officially hurt myself more in an attempt to hurt Ridley than Ridley did trying to kill us. Does anyone else see a problem with that? Ridley's entire thing, and every boss fight we've ever had with him in the entire franchise, was how it felt more like a frantic roll than anything else in the game. No clever tricks or strange gimmicks to try to hurt him, just shoot rapidly and hope he goes down before you do, which is not the sense I'm getting in this specific fight. Okay, new phase, and apparently he formed a fresh metal plate on his chest out of nowhere somehow. And again, most of our damage is self-inflicted, not something Ridley can take credit for. What did he even try to hit there? Well, that was wonderful dodging on my part. Part of me wants to ask why I'm bothering to dodge, considering the sheer amount of health we've got. But we're probably going to need some of that health to pour into his chest to kill him for this particular fight. And yet again, we have a moment where apparently we need the X-ray visor to do damage, even if we're shooting the exact same spot with the exact same gun to get the job done. Or shooting the plate off Ridley is being counted the same as we're using the hyper beam to shoot him in the exposed chest. What the hell? Part of me feels like I shouldn't be so annoyed that we found another way to lower his health bar. The other is mentally comparing this Ridley fight near the end of this game with the Ridley fight near the end of Metroid Prime 1, another 3D game. And not only were we able to injure Ridley without any major gimmicks, at best we had the portion where we had to shoot him in the mouth to expose his weaker chest for the final section of it, after we burned off his wings. He also attacked us more frantically and did more damage per hit back then. Some of that might be because I chose to play on normal instead of hard, but it feels more like they mislabeled things and should have called this difficulty easy. And frankly, changing the difficulty would not fix all my problems I have here. Hell, they made the fight against the Red Pirate before this feel like something absolutely brutal. And apparently the only reason that is because I didn't think to use the hyper mode against it until the 5th try. A random, unnamed opponent that didn't even get a health bar was more of a barrier to me than the boss. And this boss is a signature boss for the entire franchise. That would have put me in a bad enough mood. But the fact that it feels like Ridley was more intense and dangerous, despite having fewer gimmicks to make injuring him troublesome in the first Metroid Prime, just makes me even more annoyed. It's not like this boss fight is bad in comparison to the other bosses in Metroid Prime 3. It's that the boss feels less impressive than himself from 2 games ago. Another 3D title that used a lot of the same attack animations and had some extra ones on top of it. We literally took less damage from the creature trying to kill us than from ourselves as we used the dumb using our own health for enhanced firepower gimmick of this game. Ugh. Anyway, we've got another bit of our blood being affected. Why is it the first time that happens, Samus had to puke, but every other time she just kind of shakes a bit and then gets back to being an overly capable badass? The game just doesn't feel like it does enough with that story element, and it's a central thing to the story of the game as a whole. Hyper grapple? Fucking hell, I don't like the idea of hyper mode in general. Why do we need so many upgrades that give us more things we can do in hyper mode? Especially since I'm so against the mode that I made a fight in the previous clip go from a quick and intense skirmish to an unbeatable gauntlet. I'm almost getting flashbacks to the dogfight mode thing from Ace Combat Assault Horizon. That was certainly shoved into as many situations as possible, and while I wouldn't say that hyper mode drags the experience down as much as DRM, it's still something we absolutely need to do to make progress. Why would those things feel the need to suddenly sprout spikes? And great. This has to be the least visually impressive way to destroy the necessary bullshit in a scene we've seen in this game. At least the Phazon missile felt visually impressive. And that reminds me, this is the only Metroid game we've gone through that hasn't given us the power bomb. Why did they remove that staple of the franchise for this specific game? Is it because there's no way to pull that off that requires motion controls? Because I'm pretty sure my biggest issue with this game is how everything in it is designed around motion controls, with the lackluster bosses and level design being because they were working around the unfamiliar control scheme. The story being underwhelming is still an issue, but again, the story in Metroid Prime 2 was underwhelming to me as well, but I still somehow feel more drawn to that older GameCube game than the sequel that tried in several ways and even succeeded in fixing some of the problems the previous game had. It's not a great feeling to have. we've still got the blue tentacle things writhing in the ground despite destroying the seed. Excuse me for thinking we should have seen those die as we destroyed the object in the seed. Again, no real sense of us having an impact on the world we just left, and that makes it feel even worse, since we had an explicit Federation invasion going down as well down there.
You have successfully destroyed the last remaining seed as detected by our systems.
And I can't just find it in me to give a shit about it other than being glad we're closer to the end of the game.
However, there is one more mission to complete. Skytown's Aurora Unit 217 reports that it has discovered the origin of the Leviathan attacks.
How convenient. After the Chozo built those observation posts, for the pure sake of finding that thing, we find it using those exactly when it is relevant.
Unfortunately, this location is so far away it cannot be reached by conventional space travel.
I don't think faster than light travel in general can be considered conventional. And why do I feel like this part of the plot was practically lifted right out of Star Fox Assault?
If we can board this battleship, we may be able to force it to open a wormhole.
Then fly to it!
Consistent with a warp device are traveling between the pirate's planet and the Leviathan battleship.
Right. Of course we need a more convoluted path to get to where we need to go, because we want to pad things out as much as we can get away with in this game, so it feels like a more epic journey. I'm sorry, but long doesn't mean epic, just like making this game take place on multiple worlds instead of just one doesn't make it feel more grand. And just like having the occasional larger scale battle doesn't automatically make things more exciting. Anyway, time for us to finally go to the ruined Federation ship that was found quite a few hours ago in the game. We absolutely need what's on board that thing to reach that wormhole-making thing on the ship floating above the pirate homeworld. And to get to that spot, we need to use the power cells we've been gathering through the game. Hopefully, I won't have to search for more, but my finger's close to the fast-forward button just in case. Well, that's certainly a big hole in the side of the ship. Part of me wishes we got to see the fight where this thing was torn apart and the crew completely slaughtered. The other knows that even if the game designers gave themselves a chance to show that moment, they would probably have done a poor job of it. 34 clips in, I feel pretty confident in saying I don't have much faith in the game design team after everything else we've seen in this game so far. Well, seems the environmental storytelling is better in here than most of the rest of the game. It certainly took them long enough to play that card. Hell, if they had sent us to explore the ruins of this ship at the start, instead of going through the Battle of Norian, I might have had a higher opinion of the story as a whole. And if we absolutely had to get infected with Phazon in this game, it could have happened after we killed an important creature on this ship, instead of that odd attack from Dark Samus. Every time the corruption has gotten worse has been because we killed something. And great, now I'm imagining a potentially different version of this game that took more inspiration from Metroid Fusion. Us running around a large and ruined ship for the entire game, being hunted by Dark Samus the entire way, our body affected by the Phazon in our blood. I'm not too sure what kind of effect I would have preferred the Phazon to have on us, but certainly something other than the whole hyper mode gimmick. That feels like the positives far outweigh the negatives from a gameplay sense. Poor bastards seem pretty stiff. Kinda surprised they aren't slumped over somehow. It doesn't feel like we're dealing with a zero gravity environment here. So I'm not sure what's with the poses when they should be slumped over or something. These guys are complete statues unless we do something that turns them to dust. And we have Metroids in here for some reason. The Metroids on Elysia in the Pirate Homeworld made some measure of sense. They were in cages and then got out. But this room in this ship? It's somehow more jarring to me, and I can't really put my finger onto why. Mini-roids? Really? That's what we're calling baby Metroids around here? Is there a queen on this ship? Or are those babies only showing up out of nowhere because the game designers forgot a good amount of the environmental storytelling this far into the lackluster entry of this franchise? And excuse me for finding it a bit awkward that we're able to just casually slaughter all the cute little baby Metroids in here, when it's a major story point for later in the timeline that Samus doesn't kill the baby Metroid in the second 2D game, which leads to the events of the rather famous franchise-defining Super Metroid. I don't suppose they can tell us what kind of weapon did that kind of damage, can they? It's not like anything we've got could pull that sort of damage off. So, we've got Phazon acting in the same way as the Ing from the previous game. If the writing was better, they could have said that the Phazon only started to grow a hive mind quality after bonding with a major Ing from the previous game, and the Phazon-infected Ing and Dark Samus made a psychic alliance to try to kill the one who hurt them both so badly. Yes! While I didn't like the Ing in the previous game, there were ways to make them more interesting, like giving them more of an impact in the third game. There was potential there. Unfortunately, the Phazon Ing here thing is just them reusing a sprite from the previous game and giving it a different color palette because they were somehow rushed, not because it was an element they wanted to implement into the story. Because somehow, story doesn't matter when you're making the finale of a trilogy of games, and the second game needs as few callbacks as possible, despite the form of the main villain being something that was shown in the second game. I know I keep saying it, but there are a lot of baffling decisions around here.
Samus, we have received new data from AU-217. A planet was detected at the epicenter from where the Leviathan telemetry originated. We have named
well,
this planet...
that planet isn't going to have all that much time to be explored at this rate, so it's probably not all that interesting, and while part of me wants to make fun of how crappy a Phazon-focused planet being named Phase is, this is the same game that didn't bother to give the Pirate Homeworld a goddamn name, despite the fact that it should have been a very major location in the franchise. I swear, the writers around here just don't seem to know how to work with what they have, and the gameplay isn't nearly satisfying enough to make up for that. He doesn't look like he's in a crawling position. The arm and leg positions just seem like he was posed for mummification or something. Think I'll check the other door before I commit to using an energy cell on this elevator. We've got a limited number of cells on us. I don't know how many different mechanisms that might, want one, and I very much want to avoid having to do any kind of key hunt like the previous two games. It's not like the scans of these energy cell location things is all that informative anyway. They're just as uninformative, if slightly less cryptic, than the intel we got on the keys in Metroid Prime 1. Think that's the only wall where we have to destroy multiple sections just to unlock one path. It doesn't really make things more interesting. It's just felt like a noteworthy anomaly. And for our next anomaly, we have hoppers that are completely made of Phazon as an upgrade from the Phazon-infected hoppers all the way back on Rio. What? Do You mean to tell me that Phazon is starting to work like the Zerg from StarCraft? Assimilating the biological strains of numerous creatures across the universe and enhancing them to become more efficient, durable killers for the swarm? Because if that's the case, they should have made that sort of thing more explicit and put it as a part of the central theme of the story as a whole. Fighting against a cosmic horror that's slowly becoming more powerful as it spreads across the galaxy is a damn fun idea, and this game has the bare bones basics to pull that off. They would have just had to put more attention on that sort of thing in the story, so it would make destroying the seeds on each planet feel more meaningful. As it is, destroying them just feels like we're going through a checklist of tasks, and there's nothing to really make it feel like it means much other than these enemies want us dead and want this to happen, so destroying those things is somehow annoying to them. I think I'm gonna pull back to save for now. Maybe check an online guide to make sure that when we make the next bit of progress, I don't end up making a wrong move and having to go search for more energy cells to open the way for us. I'm also incredibly likely to fast forward through a good chunk of the next clip, even if we're going through unfamiliar territory again. We are very close to the end of the game, and this game's story and gameplay aren't doing anything to really pull me into the experience. Sure, the ending sequence could have been a hell of a lot longer and dragged on, but if you're not absorbed in the experience, then it's going to feel like kind of a drag anyway. All in all, I am amazed that we went so far in this game without much fast forwarding, despite the various issues I have with the game as a whole. And since I'm the kind of person who likes to give credit where it's due, that probably means that the game designers had a pretty solid idea of what they were doing despite my issues. I may not agree with a number of decisions as we head towards the ending, but hey, I played it through from beginning to end, and despite my constant bitching, didn't feel like outright skipping anything we went through. Better games than this have failed to do so well in my book, but that's not going to stop me from continuing to wish this game did better in several categories.